That, but welcome to another PD chat show with our regular panel, Rob Bryan, and we welcome back Pete Cater as well from his tour
Hello.
of all the clubs and just trying digital socially out. He's done a whole, I think, twice around the UK since last week, Pete. I think you've done that, and everything's okay social distance wise for a drum kit tour.
Yeah.
Full. Now, what we have is a very special guest again today. Is the multi-award winning, multi-percussionist, multi-talented, lovely guy, Mr. Pete Lockett. Welcome, Pete.
Yay. Good to be here, Matt. Thanks for inviting me on, and let's have a good evening's chatting about drums and how to disinfect bananas.
Yeah, well, was meant to go live at 8 o'clock, guys, and I do apologise for that. But meanwhile, Rob managed to actually get his tea in while eating a banana, so he was discussing how to disinfect a banana. Now, luckily that wasn't live, so if you want to know, please drop Pete Lockett or Rob Bryan a message, and they will give you the answer. But no, please come and say hi, guys, please. Because lots to get through tonight. Some fantastic things be going on. So evening, guys. People are watching. Thank you very much for watching, guys. Say hello. Remember to get all your questions in. Please put them in the comment box. If you're watching on replay, please put hashtag replay. Please like the Palace Drum Clinic page on the Facebook if you're watching this for the first time. You'll get some more amazing videos and so lots of amazing conversations, and there's lots of stuff on the website, which is down there, which is palacedrumclinic.com. So, and you'll see all these guys playing there. So, thank you very much for that. So, all I want to basically start, we always just start with a discussion first, and then basically we open up. So, I want to basically discuss this today, which is quite a dear one to my heart. Why is it that us percussionists, because obviously we are all percussionists, drum kit is part of percussion, well, why is it like the drum kit percussionists, why are we always looking to find and learn from different cultures? Why are we looking to see what we can actually add in from different rhythms from around the world, and basically try and expand our vocabulary of literally just rhythm? Pete, can I come to Pete Lockett? Can I come to you first, please, sir?
Yeah, definitely. Well, I mean, actually, I never looked for it at all, to be perfectly honest with you. I mean, it was a complete accident how I got into, rhythms from around the world. I mean, initially I played the drum set. I started at 19, so I was quite a late starter with the instrument. Moved to London a couple of years after that, and, just trying to get stuff happening. And quite by chance, I discovered Indian music. There was a big festival of India in Alexander Park. And they built life-size temples and everything. It was an amazing festival. My friend lived near there, and it was about a month long, the festival. So we'd been in there a couple of times and, had some gulab jams and, checked stuff out, and were interested in all the stuff that was on show there. But, I didn't really see that much music. But then one night we're sitting in his house, and this music comes through the window. And I'm like, wow, that's amazing. What the hell is that? It was like music from Mars, as far as I was concerned. I'd never heard anything like it. We went off into the park, and that was just when Alexander Palace had burnt down, and they had that. I don't know if you remember, they had that big separate concert hall next door to it. And so we went. It was a free concert, and it was the late great Ali Akbar Khan playing an instrument called the Sarod, and one of the living geniuses of percussion nowadays, Zakir Hussain. So that was the first time that I'd ever seen Indian music, and I, completely bright. If you've never seen it at all before, and suddenly you see Zakir and Ali Akbar Khan going at it full throttle, that's an experience and a half. So I made a mental note of it. But then a couple of weeks later, I lived in Tottenham at that time. A free newspaper came through the front door, and it had fallen open on the mat, and it had fallen open on a big advert for tabla lessons. So it's an accident, and I never really actively went to seek any specific, cultural music from around the world. It just kind of, I'll hear something, and I was interested in it enough to study it. So, I heard South Indian music, and I was interested enough to actually pursue a study of it. Similar with Arabic and lots of different things. So, although I would say, yeah, it's great to sort of seek out and search and find. But it's also important to follow, the love that you feel from things when you hear them. For me, that's the key instigator and the true sort of ignition of the whole thing.
Right, but just recently, in the last few years or so, you've actually gone out to different countries and learned in different tribes and stuff like that, haven't you?
I've been collaborating actually. I've been doing a lot in in India, in different parts in Africa. I've worked a lot in India anyway with classical artists. But I went out to Rajasthan. I had this amazing project where got taken out into the desert by the promoter to all these little villages, 6 hours into the desert, these little villages with no electricity, no running water, like an amazing experience. And each village kind of put on a performance, under a banyan tree or, just in the village. And then I got, after a couple of days of going around these villages and like, I don't know, 20 or whatever it was, I got to pick, some from here, some from there, and picked 30 different musicians that came together into this big kind of Rajasthani folk group. There were trained musicians alongside farmers and laborers and all sorts of stuff. So that was, I think that's the project you're thinking about in terms of, going out into rural India and putting together a project like that. Just a completely mind-blowing project. We toured India with that, with the Jodhpur Festival, Jaipur Festival, Lucknow Festival, and we did the festival hall in London and like quite a lot with it actually. That was an amazing project to be putting together and bringing all those people together and creating a kind of unique kind of musical vision for it really.
Amazing. As I say, I saw some of that, what you did, and it just looks an experience in itself, let alone it's like learning, touring it. So actually going into those, learning with those people.
It was life changing, to be honest, because what it made me realise was something that I'd never really realised. Well, I kind of unconsciously knew it, but when you go to places like that, you realise how much music is part and parcel of people's everyday culture. It's just part of their life. Like they're not doing it to be famous or rich or to get faster or more technically ambidextrous or to to do whatever objectives there are outside of the music. They play music to play music, and it's a pretty amazing thing really, because I mean, I'm not saying that it's better or worse. Every system has its advantages and disadvantages. But here in the West, we're used to music being a commodity, a fashion or a fad. It's something that you add you add to your CV and achieve. And we kind of the danger is to lose the actual a priori, sense and meaning of it in the first place. The reason that we all play, that underneath it, that core of passion for music.
Yeah, basically. Just before we go on, a couple of highs. It's Matthew Devlin, who's our regulars here. Thank you very much for watching again. Glyn Jones, Dave Patrick, hello. Joshua Holmes, Ian Stocks, Kenneth Russell Everett, hello. Mike Toppin's there. Timbo Jones, Nick Simmons Smith, hello from over the pond again. It's Mark Donison as well. Hello, there's lots of people watching. Mike Wilson, absolutely fantastic. Good evening, gentlemen. Evening, guys. Hello, and all that kind of stuff.
Brilliant. Hi, everyone.
Got a few questions coming in there, which is great. But I will come to it. Pete Cater, what do Pete? It's like, how important is it basically to know and actually understand different rhythms, basically playing it in, especially in the genre that you do?
Sorry, say that again.
How important is it to understand and know different rhythms from different cultures?
Right, but for me, I mean, the cultures other than North American and European that have always been of most interest to me are Afro-Cuban and Brazilian. And is it that I'm going to become a kind of hardcore salsa player or a hardcore samba player? No, it isn't. But the knowledge, the working knowledge and the understanding of the background and the lineage of those rhythms, I just adds to your range as a player. It gives you more knowledge. It gives you more vocabulary, worthwhile vocabulary to call on, that is derived from something that's essentially from a very strong musical and rhythmic tradition, and so that's where I like to look. I mean, I if I'm sitting working on very very bread and butter like backbeats and bass drum 8th and 16th note stuff, I'll play different rhythms derived from Casca and the hi-hat rather than just doing the usual kind of more static ostinato type patterns that drummers tend to work on, because it's great for your independence. It adds a lot of color and variety to your playing, and so it just makes you a more interesting musician. Because if you're just playing the same stuff that everybody else is playing, you're not going to you know, you're probably going to tick along perfectly fine, but
all about
you're not going to have that
application
special
as
thing.
well. For what you're saying there is exactly right. The idea of widening your vocabulary and stuff like that. And what I always remember, I was in Australia doing the Australia Drum Weekend. I did it a few years in a row actually. And one of the guys there, I've forgotten his name. That's terrible to forget his name. Just gone. Anyway, it's an old jazz drummer. I think he's like in his 80s now. Great player. And he was kind of interested in the Indian thing. And one of the things that people often find is that they don't necessarily, like drum set players from the West, don't necessarily look in that area because they kind of think, it's a lot of complicated rhythm and they don't necessarily see a direct application for it. I'm kind of, talking about, your statement about applying and developing vocabulary. And what he did with, and it's really interesting, it's one of the most interesting things that someone's done with the material, actually. One of the years I gave him my book, my Indian Rhythm to the Drum Set book. It's on Hudson Music. And he looked at me, he was always interested in it. And he said, the next year I went along and he said, I want to play you this recording. So he played me this recording. And it was trading eights in this thing, this CD that he recorded. And I was like, wow, what the hell is that? That just sounds amazing. He said, what I did was I took one of your rhythmic things, and I just slowed it down to, half the speed and played it with brushes with a very, nice phraseology, not like a necessarily blaring everywhere with it all, nice phraseology. And it just sounded amazing. So yeah, you're right, Pete. It's that thing of widening your vocabulary and getting a bigger palette to draw from, create your rhythmic world.
Yeah, definitely. We've got a couple of highs again. We've got AJ Russo. Hello, hi AJ. Dave Brown and Joe Morris are watching. Malcolm Phillips, hello. Ian Palmer, hi Ian. Nice to see you again.
Ian.
A couple of weeks
Oh,
ago.
yeah.
Paul Bates, Lindsay Atwell, Gabor's on a couple of weeks. Hi Gabor, Dornay. Well done. Martin Ollie.
Hey, Gabor.
Hi. Martin Ollie says, hi guys, a bit late joining tonight. Sorry, we had technical problems. We went up, so you haven't missed, some amazing conversation, but you haven't
We're
missed
not the earliest
much. Dave Jones is watching. It's fantastic. So we've got some lovely people. Just coming to Rob. You've been sitting there very patiently. Well done, Rob.
Got my bananas.
You've got that studio experience of basically when people say, "Can you play this and that?" Do you find that sort of people ask for world music sort of rhythms in the playing at all, and they and then when you play it to them, they don't realise what it is, or
Yeah, a lot of the times that happens. People will sing something, and I think all of us here will have the same experience where someone will say, I can hear something in this section that isn't necessarily 16s, it's not this, there might be some broken phrases. So I sit in there and think, okay, listen to the tempo, listen to the feel, and think, how about this? And you quote from many different places, like, Latin music, African music, and you come up with these patterns. You go, that's it. And nobody really cares what they're called. So I found that, a bit like Pete, really, like both Pete's, I came from a background of, actually, the first time I heard Indian music was on Revolver, the Beatles, on Love You Too, that George Harrison song. And I was 9 or 10, and I was like, this is interesting. And then Dad had a Buddy Rich album, Rakat Rich or something, with Ravi Shankar or something. I remember listening to that and go, wow, and just discovering stuff. And I never actually sat down academically. So I just went through his collection of records of different cultures and found all these things. And probably now I could name half of them, because some of my drummer friends can say, oh, that's the so-and-so. And I'm like, I don't know. I just kind of feel them and sort of learn them and put them into my playing. So though I could never do never even pretend to do a clinic on world music, but a lot of the stuff I've listened to and enjoyed, I've soaked in and I put into my playing. But I couldn't academically tell you what some of it is. I just know that I can hear it, and I could probably write it if I needed to, but I don't know the names of it. And to me, that means a lot more than being able to say I can do this and that, just in my world, So I've had the experience, but without actually knowing some of the patterns that I'm playing, the names of them or where they come from. And I'm just very thankful that I've got that knowledge. So, I could go down to Peter Gabriel Studio at Real World, knock these things out, and I play them, and then the artist is very happy, I'm very happy, and the music has come out. I'm a boy from Corsham, you know. I mean, I don't know these rhythms. I'm suddenly playing them on somebody's record, and it becomes a thing. And
Dave Brown's just put Rich Alaraka. Is that the one?
Rich Alaraka,
Yeah, with Alaraka, yeah. It's a brilliant, it's a great album, actually.
There's some interesting moments. There's like a trade-off on that album where they're playing against each other, which is incredible. But yes, so yeah, definitely, you know, and like all the guys have said, you've got to bring that stuff into your playing. So it can only help you. There's no point keeping that stuff out of your playing at all. Yeah. Any knowledge of any rhythm is always good.
Yeah, we've actually got a question from Josh. It's we're talking about collaborations. Mr. Lockett, is Pete doing any collaborations at the moment? So you working with anyone? Have you got any new things starting up at all? Or?
Only about 50. Well, I've got this Play From Home series going on at the moment, so I'm going to finish that next week. But I'll be about. They're kind of between 1 and 2 minute videos with musicians from all over the world, Japan, India, and you know, America and United Kingdom and everywhere. So I will have done about, by the time it's finished, which is the end of next week, there'll be about just under 50, I think. It's like 40, 45, something like that.
And where can we watch those, Pete?
Just go onto my YouTube channel or follow me on Facebook and Instagram and Twitter. They're all posted every day, you know. I post generally about 4 a week, different ones. Today's was with the great mandolin player, Rajesh, who's Srinivas's brother. Just a brilliant South Indian mandolin player. Tomorrow is with Mahesh Raghavan, and he's an amazing musician from South India, and he does everything with Geo Shred, which is an iPad app. But when you hear it, it's just like ridiculous virtuoso on the app. You know, it's brilliant. Yeah. So, but there's loads of other stuff. There's a new album I've finished with Randy Gloss, which is going to come out some point this year. There's another one with Lewis Conti and Mino Sanello and Lee Mullin. That's finished. I've finished one with a guy called Peter John Vitesi, who's an amazing keyboard player, just a super producer. And so we got a whole project together, Lockett Vitesse project, that we're going to, I mean, it's obviously held up now because of all this, you know, shenanigans and tragedy that's going on. But you know, once we, you know, we kind of come out of this, you know, we're gonna push with that. So yeah, lots of different things. I've just been recording today on an amazing project with a great sitarist from India called Purbayan Chatterjee. We've got a project with musicians from America, from South Africa. That's going to come out on World Music Day, which is the 20th of June. It's going to be quite a big. I think they're going to push a lot behind that project.
Right, amazing. We've got hi Liz, Liz Whitehead. We've got a question. Any listening recommendations to start with world rhythms? Whoa, where do we start?
You can't really say world rhythms because it's, you know, it's like saying, how do you start in a supermarket? You know, it's like, respectfully, you know, you got to work out, listen to what you like. If you like Indian sort of sounds, if you like South Indian and North Indian, do you like Turkish? You know, do you like Arabic? Do you like, you know, jazz, rock? You know, so they're all world rhythms to me. And I don't differentiate with the rhythms that we would commonly associate with popular music or, you know, music that we're familiar with in the West and say that they're not world rhythms. You know, we're all and everyone's from the world, you know. So, you know, world rhythms as an idea doesn't, to me, it doesn't. That's everything, you know. That's the whole supermarket. So let's talk about some aisles and talk about some sections and choose from that, really.
Yeah, Gaynor, if you want to answer like another question, it's like, what's the sort of thing that really grabs you? Is it's like go down to like a Eastern, it's like Asian, Middle Eastern, it's like South America? Give us something, and we might be able to help you a little bit more.
I mean, you know, the basic answer to the question is find out what you like to listen to, and then listen to it, right, and then research how to study it. I mean, it's so easy now. You know, I mean, for me, like going back to what I was saying earlier about, you know, I never sought out anything. It kind of found me, and I followed the things that I loved over the years. I would love this type of music, and I would study it, and that's the incentive. It's not like you know, it's not something you go and do as a like a university degree, or you're doing a degree in philosophy and you've got to do Hegel and you've got to do Immanuel Kant and you've got to do all these different people, you're going to find out what moves you. You know, but people don't always think of that's the best starting point, but it is. What touches you passionately about listening to certain music? And if you're grabbed by it, that's why for me, you know, I'm always been very selective with the different sessions and the different music that I'm involved with, because if I don't like the music, I don't care what they're going to pay me, I'm not going to go and play it. You know, and I know that's maybe a negative thing to say for people that want to go out and be a gigging working musician and play everything that comes their way. But for me, you know, I've not been able to give 100% to things that I don't really passionately feel, you know, incredibly strongly about musically. And so, you know, that's my kind of approach to it, really.
Couple of people. Hi, Richard Horton, Cozy Drums. Hi, Archie Rose. It's for me, it's that kind of thing, because I keep saying about this, is like, you know, through my classical pathway and everything else, that you know, the pathway from my education was very, very sort of classical, but I always veered off onto the drum kit, basically started doing a lot of world musicians, and for me it's like it was exactly what Pete's doing. It's like a lot of things found me. I was running a samba band in Birmingham. Then I got asked, because somebody knew somebody, it's like, you know, working with a Nasheed group, and I didn't really know any Nasheed groups, so I had to go and look them up. Really enjoyed the kind of stuff, and they were like one of the biggest Nasheed groups outside of like the Middle East, sort of thing. I thoroughly enjoyed myself about 3 or 4 years. It was amazing. Went basically all around the world doing stuff. It was fantastic. But you know, it's that fell on my plate, and then I got into you know, the kind of like how, you know, I like to when I'm doing stuff, I put myself into the situation it is, because then you understand a little bit more the culture and everything else, what goes in it, what you can and what you can't do. Yeah, guys, just go out and just listen to something. I think Pete said it. I think you said it quite a few times, Mr. Cater. Is that listen to something that you haven't listened to before to find out what's
Well, yeah. I did one of my little videos was about this the other week, where I said, just go, you know, as Pete said a moment ago, it's so easy. Just go into YouTube and put, you know, put in the search, put music from Mali or music from Ethiopia or music from 1936, and you know, you can travel around the world, you can travel back in time. There's 100 years of recorded music to draw from. So if you're just listening to the same stuff that everybody else is listening to from the last 6 months, you're not gonna stand out. You're just gonna conform and just be kind of another one of the people waiting in line for a gig to come around. It's really important that, you know, you learn from music and just as I said earlier at the beginning of the show, broaden your range as a player from all the stuff that's out there. And Rob's point was really on point, where you're maybe recording for a songwriter or something, and they don't really speak drum language. They might not even speak the language of, you know, crotchets and quavers or eighth notes and quarter notes or whatever, and they can't necessarily express what they want, and that sometimes can be very difficult. So if you've got all this different language, all these different rhythmic dialects to draw from, the chances are you're far more likely to stumble upon something. And this to me is one of the great joys of the creative process. And we can all go in and do a date where you've got a chart and you read it down, you do 3 takes, and then you go on to the next one and you go on to the next one. And by the time 4:30 comes around, you've got 18 tunes in the can. But, you know, the recording world, it isn't really like that very much anymore. And the more you've got going for you, the more, let's say, more rhythmic dialects you have some fluency with, the more likely it is you're going to come up with something interesting, appropriate, and unique.
Yeah. Gain has actually replied back to us. I get stuck in a metal rock genre, and I feel I should expand more. Well, explore.
Hi, Gainer. How you doing?
Keep going. But I'm not sure where to start. I enjoy thrash prog metal, but want to expand. Well, I'm going to come to you, Rob, because have you actually, like, you know, you played something and then gone, do you know what? I want to find something more about that, and actually sort of picked up an album or, you know, something.
Yeah.
Like that. Yeah, what kind of album did you like, stumble across in that scenario?
Well, it can happen at sessions. Somebody could mention something, and you play something, and you might get something down they like, and then when you go home, I've actually gone out and thought, right, I need to buy some of that, because they have actually got some sort of knowledge about it, and actually bought loads of stuff. So that's happened to me on a few different occasions, I have to say. Mostly, I've got to say, Indian music for me has been kind of my pathway into that world. There's something about that, the music, the sound, the way it works, just speaks to me. So for me, that was my sort of voyage of discovery, going home and, ordering records, buying CDs before the internet, of course, and going out and trying to listen to this stuff and understand it. And then Sri Gertu come along and blew my mind and upset me greatly. And then I fell in love with him again. And that for me is kind of where I fall personally. Albums now, I'd have to go out into the garage and rifle through the records. It's been a long time, but for me, that was my sort of go-to thing, was Indian music.
One of the things about that as well, and it's quite interesting you say that, because I always remember before, when I started to get in the beginning learning tabla and done learning to perceive Indian music and the way that it all fitted together. One of the things that I'm saying this because sometimes people think that the more schooled you are in something, then better you understand it, and therefore the more you'll enjoy it. And it's not always the case. So, for example, with my experience with Indian music, before I understood what was happening, it was like a whole kind of kaleidoscope of just a thing that was like I could just fall into. It's almost like you just kind of go into it and you're kind of there in this thing. But the more you learn, like for me now, if I listen to Indian, North Indian music, as I'm speaking about mainly here, North Indian music, long extemporization, sitar and tabla, sitar and bansuri, stuff like that. Now I always know where the beat is. I know exactly what's happening with the music, and I can't fall into it in the same way. And it takes me back to when I was a kid. Or not so much a kid, but when I was just before I started to play the drums, I used to go to a lot of punk gigs and a lot of, kind of different like rock gigs and stuff. And it affected me so much. Sometimes I'd put on an album at home before I went to work, and I wouldn't be able to take it off. This before I played the drums. So I'd always be late for work because I'd put the album on and I wouldn't be able to take it off because I'd be so, involved in the album. I didn't play any instruments at all. And that, I'm really glad that I've got those two experiences, because what it makes me realize is that actually music is just this thing that touches all of humanity. Whether you're, we get too muso sometimes and think, oh well, it's technically it's amazing. Absolutely. And they played marvelously fast and so complicated, and but to go back to that proper real life experience of music, I think is a very, very valuable thing to have. And you're in the advantageous position there, Rob, of but respectfully, it doesn't sound patronizing, but having not studied Indian music, you can still fall into it and be involved in the swirling kind of everythingness of it, as it's going by. And I miss that, actually.
Yeah.
Maybe there's another genre you're going to fall into soon. You never know, isn't it? So,
I don't miss it in terms of my passion for music and what I listen to and all that. I mean, that one experience I miss with Indian music is not being able to fall into it in a naive way like I did. I'm kind of getting into different new things all the time, like this app player, Mahesh. It's just ridiculous. Watch the video tomorrow. Well, that's the future. There's a lot of people that kind of say, oh, well, it's acoustic instruments, technology. We don't want any of it, but you get left behind really if that's the and then you see, for me, seeing this guy play, to me it's a vision of the future, because obviously integrating the past and everything together. But it's such a genius with technology. It's just inspiring to. And he's only a kid. I'm not sure how old he is, but he's not. He's not old enough to be my son.
A couple of highs: Chris Harvey, Paul Monday, Heinz Groberger, hi, Chris Dymott, Sandra. Fantastic. We've had a question from Matthew Devonish. Can Pete recommend a really good tabla teaching book and DVD? Also, how to tune them? Can you recommend
Tuning
anything?
a very complicated one to answer, you know, without the actual drum in hand. I mean, some people, you know, maintain that it's, I mean, I don't agree with them, but some people maintain it's harder to actually learn to tune the tabla than it is to actually learn to play them. I don't agree with that, but there's a lot of like amazing top end, well, not a lot. I've heard some top end tabla players who've really been quite out of tune, you know, sometimes. So a book, there's not that much around for total, you know, complete beginners. I've got a free book on my website that you just download it and you know, it's all got all the MP3 audio examples. That's on my PeteLockett.com website, which is my free lessons. .info is my personal website. And there's also on there's a set of 6 30-minute videos of all the basics of tabla. So in terms of getting started, I think that would be a pretty good place to start. But the other thing is, you know, look what's around you, local Indian community centre, or, you know, you might well find that you know, there's tabla lessons in there that you could go and join them.
Well, there we go. I hope that's answered your question. As I say, I got asked a question this week. Can you recommend a book to like take, you know, from the next stage where they left off? And I was like, well, there's 1,001 of those books. Do you know what I mean? It's it all depends what works for you, isn't it? At the end of the day, if you understand something in a different book, then you go for it. Andrew Dow's hi. It basically when it comes to it's the world kind of you know, we're not, it's basically beats, isn't it, at the end of the day. Pete, can I come to you? How many kind of like for like sorry, Mr. Cater, so the big band kind of era, if people started watching at home, you know, because obviously some people think of a big band is literally you got like a samba and you basically got, you know, and your straight kind of swing. Is there any variance of basically those two? Because a lot of people just basically, oh, okay, it's this sound. Is there any variance of basically what you can do from that?
So, sorry, I'm having a lot of trouble hearing you tonight, Matt.
Is there? Okay, well, I'll speak a little bit closer.
That's better.
Is there any kind of in the big band? Because I say, how many sort of variants of like different beats you have to do? Because if people watching at home and they're not into
that's a very good question, and really all that depends on is what the arranger or the composer or the arranger actually knows about those musical genres. Sometimes you'll get a chart, and you know, you've seen this as well, and it will just say Latin.
Yeah.
And they'll write a pattern that you know, the whoever's written this part in 99 out of 100 cases probably isn't a drummer. So they just kind of have this vague idea of what it is we play that they kind of hear as a single entity coming from the drums without necessarily being able to distinguish the various different parts that we're playing. And they'll write some kind of half idea of what they think the drums should be doing. And sometimes it's good and sometimes it's awful. I mean, sometimes if you play some of these things literally, they sound simply terrible. So if you have a knowledge of, you know, what Brazilian drum set is supposed to sound like, what Afro-Cuban drum set, and, you know, the Afro-Cuban things that predate drum set, like so kind of everything prior to Songo, if you know those cultures, those styles, you will come up with a better drum part than any arranger is likely to, unless they're an absolute serious expert or from that part of the world originally, and most of the time they're not. They're probably going to be North American or European. If you studied this stuff, if you know that rhythmic culture, you're going to be able to add so much to what it is they've written in their arrangement, just by being able to play a pattern that sounds more authentic.
Mm.
I used to do this years and years ago. I'd be doing like ballroom dancing competitions at Watford Town Hall.
Did you win them?
Huh?
Did you win?
No. It's keeping the sequins on was always the problem. And you know, they come up with a mambo, and you get this like handwritten chart, and what was on there was kind of, you know, not even close. So I would play something that I knew sounded a lot better, and particularly one particular piano player who used to turn up on those gigs, a guy called Neil Angili, was really hip to the authenticity some of what I was doing, and he kind of would look and kind of really get it. And if you know, and it's like playing jazz. If you've never played any jazz, and then you go and try and play in your community big band, and you start playing 1 and 3 on the bass drum and 2 and 4 on the snare drum, as a lot of players will do, then it's not going to sound very good. And that might well be what's notated on the chart, because again, it's just it's you have to remember what, unless you're talking about orchestral stuff. Or like show music, where you're expected to play exactly what's written every time. Most drum charts are like lead sheets. They're like chord charts. It might tell you what the chords are, but it doesn't tell you what the top note of the voicing is. And it will just have some outline rhythms that you're expected to phrase with, but it won't necessarily tell you where or how on the drums you're going to phrase it. And this is one of the things that I love about our instrument, because it affords us so much creative scope when you're given a written chart to play, which if you're a brass player or a woodwind player or a string player, you pretty much play what's there. You might phrase it differently, and all the different lead trumpet players I've ever worked with, you get lots of different variations of where they place their offbeat eighth notes, what the time is like, what their feel is like. I mean, to me, a lead trumpet player is just, I listen to them for feel just in the same way as I would a bass player. But basically, they are playing what's notated, unless they've got some solo changes to blow over. Whereas we have a completely different vista to explore, and the guys who interpret written drum charts the best are the guys who get the gigs and keep them.
Yeah, well, just coming back to Matthew Devlin, he said, "Wicked, thanks very much. He was going to check out your site, Mr. Lockett." Hi, Jackie Garcia, Alex Clark, Mark Connolly. Any chance of a collaboration between the 4 of you? I think it would be very musical, interesting. Well, we never say never in this business. Hi, Tom Lane. Hi, Ben Roberts. Rob, basically, so, the stuff that you're doing with your students, because I know you've been doing some online teaching from the universities that you teach at. Do you actually integrate all these kind of rhythms actually in your teaching, or how does it involve to basically you teaching them in that vein?
Yeah, I mean, I was saying in sort of my career, I'll go around saying, I don't know what this rhythm is, but I can play it. But, of course, the truth is, over time, I've had to sort of, when you're teaching, you have to sit down and nail down, so that's what that is. And I think that's really important. I did some teaching at BIM in Bristol, and we'd have Latin week and so on. And it was really important just to say, okay, background, yeah, okay, do this. So even though I felt quite naive, like going and playing it and feeling it, which, with knowledge about rock and pop and jazz and other styles was good, but like Pete was saying, it was quite nice to be a bit naive about it and just enjoy the experience of playing the music. All of a sudden, if you're teaching it, I think you have to have the discipline of knowing what you're talking about to a certain degree. So when it comes to teaching at Bath Spa University and BIM, yeah, I mean, I name these things. I talk about the culture, where it came from, to demonstrate, try and find records and recommendations to say, hey, here's so-and-so Steve Gadd playing, or so-and-so whoever playing it, so you must listen to that, and then do a little search on Spotify and go down that rabbit hole of seeing where that takes you as well. So yeah, it's much more formal when I'm teaching, but when I must admit, when I'm playing, I try to forget the names and I just try to play what I feel, and that's hard to do, isn't it? Because once you understand something, like Pete Lockett would say, it's like you know what it is, and it's like the framework, and you can obviously play it well and everything, but it's not about that. You sort of lose that sort of naive quality. And I think me and Pete Cater were saying another week, having that little bit of knowledge, but a bit of naivety in your playing is quite nice to have, and to hold on to if you can.
Yeah.
But
you can know too much.
Discipline. Sorry, Pete.
Pete just said you can know too much.
Absolutely, yeah. It has to go, and both Pete's tonight, and I know Matt, we've talked about this. As much as we all talk about the knowledge, it's still nice to have that little feeling that you're playing from the heart, which is sometimes so hard to do in this day where everything's kind of nailed down. And I don't want to contradict myself. We must understand all these different things, but sometimes just throwing the book down and saying, right, I'm now going to play whatever I feel is one of the most important things I think all drummers need to remember. You know,
Yeah.
another drummer can spot when someone's being clinical. Any of us here could spot when someone's being, oh, that's a so-and-so, you know, that's a so-and-so.
Yeah.
And I think trying to let that go is one of the hardest things because it's ego, but it's one of the best things because all of a sudden the band will turn around to you and go, we'll have you next week. This guy is playing drums, you know,
Yeah.
if that makes sense.
Pete, did you have anything to come back, Mr. Cater?
Well, it's just reminding me of a funny story. I was at playing at a drum festival and was in the wings, you know, when I wasn't playing, watching something. I forget who was drumming, but they were amazing, like amazing set they did. And I don't even remember who it was next to me, but they were definitely like less of a well-known drummer than this other drummer. The other drummer was like a great player. And the guy's like does this X amount of amazing stuff, and then the guy nudges me and he says, "Yeah, that's all from my book," and he meant it. And it's just,
Yeah, right.
No, it's not. It's not from your book. Don't say it.
Brilliant. Hi, Paul Hughes. Hope I say this right. Lewis Salia. Oh, I think it's hello. Thanks for watching. Mr. Lockett, you have, I personally think you've been a sort of amazing, generous person by basically giving a lot of free lessons on your websites and lots of downloads and stuff like that. But now, also, you're now in Rhythm Magazine, aren't you? So basically giving your top tips for the percussion toolbox, which I think is very valuable because knowing how to play these, like, sometimes actually very simple instruments, actually with, you know, with grace and passion is vital. How did you get to basically come to, do you know what, I'm going to strip it down, and some people actually would call these primary school instruments, I suppose, at the end of the day, the shakers.
Well,
how did you get around that?
The instruments aren't primary school instruments. You know, you go around, you know, we look around cultures around the world and how the way shakers are played, for example. Look at maracas and shaker techniques, kashishi techniques and stuff like that. You know, it's you see, the problem there is that that's how sometimes people in the West think of percussion, and it's a complete misguided way of perceiving it, because, you know, if you look at percussion around the world, you know, for most parts outside of, you know, Europe and North America, it's the minority. Percussion is the leading, you know, force of the rhythmic world around the world, and in fact the drum set is a compilation of those instruments, you know. So but going back to actually, you know, doing, there's a couple of things with that particular course. I mean, the first thing is that I think it's really good to just go back to the absolute basics with certain instruments. The number of sessions that I've been on to replace, because someone thought they could, the singer or someone thought they could do a shaker, and you know, the producer, you know, gets someone and says, look, we won't tell them, but you know, you got to replace that. It's just horrendous. So people think it's easy, but it's actually, to play a decent shaker pattern is you know, it's not easy. Where you sit in the pocket, how you know, blend in between all of the you know, particularly if it's orchestras involved, because you're fighting the MIDI and the orchestra are like always at war, you know, in terms of where the time is, and so you've got to kind of sit in the middle, and it's really hard. But anyway, to go to like show the absolute basics of those instruments is very important. But for me, the most important thing with those this course that I've got going with them, which is the basics of percussion, is what I've always said to drum set players, you know, on clinics and educationally, is that the more you put in your toolbox, the more things that you've got. So besides expanding your vocabulary with different influences and players and rhythms from around the world, or whatever it is you're going to listen to and be inspired by and develop from, you know, also in terms of instruments. I mean, if you turn up and you've got a bit of basic percussion down, shakers, tambourines, triangles, maybe a bit of cajon playing, you know, you're more likely to get the gig than someone who's exactly the same quality as you as a drum set player. And also technology, you know, I think it's super important that everyone, more and more important actually, as we transcend through time, you know, more and more important for people to get properly involved with technology, get logic down, you know, get sampling down and triggering and all the different things you can add to your playing, because, you know, it all just makes you, you know, more likely to get the call than someone who plays the same as you, and plays all the stuff that you don't. So
that's so true. That is so true. Can I just say, Matt, that is so true, because when I got the Lorena gig, they were asking me, can you play a bit of Darabuka, and I was like, yeah. Can you play shakers and tambourines and stuff? And it was actually on the session that I was kind of going, yeah, I can. And I could play some shaker, and I'm not joking, I spent 3 hours playing a shaker part, because it wasn't to click, and the tempo was kind of moving. And what Pete's saying is absolutely right. And I did so many takes with the motion going this way onto the beat, coming back on the ands, trying so many different things, because Lorena wanted it, and I respected her as a performer and as a musician, and her music I love. And it was worth spending all that time. So when people say to me, shakers, man, you just go cha-cha-cha-cha, tambourine, you just do this, I'm like, no, you do not do that. It's
the other thing that's useful as well in terms of doing sessions. We had a good rhythm round table a month or so ago, with Fergus and Miles and Lee, and one of the things that came up there was the idea of shakers, and we were kind of in agreement that a lot of the time, I mean, for me, when I go in and do a session, I'll often there's an advert down there. A lot of the time I'll put a shaker down, even if it's not going to stay on the track. And I'll do that with stuff when I'm working at home. Someone sends me a track through, a guitarist or, whatever, I'll often put a shaker down, even though I'm never going to leave it on, because, the 16th note sort of, shaker thing is, has got a little bit of a bad name outside of the pop world, to be perfectly honest with you. So it seemed to be, people think it's a little bit too poppy, But for me, the idea of putting a 16th note shaker down, or an 8th note shaker or whatever, is it actually creates a bed on which you can create. And even if you take the shaker out at the end, you've created your own time frame that you kind of quantize yourself to when you're overdubbing on the track. It's a very useful thing to do, rather than starting with a more solo voice like bongos, for example. Then you're already creating stuff that's going to make it even harder to gel it all together at the end. Or you could do that at the end, add those voices on at the end, and you can float around on top of it. Hello, my wife's here.
It's an interesting one. I suppose your wife has seen you more than she's ever seen for a fair few years.
Oh, I'm home quite a lot. I mean, I don't. I mean, I'd stopped doing any band tours about 20 years ago anyway. So I mean, I only do my own. So not pretentious or anything. I just don't want to be on road with people that I might not get on with. So I mean, I do my own collaborations and my own solo shows, but I never tour with bands. I do studio stuff like that. So I'm home quite a bit, to be honest. Always have been, especially now. All the time.
Don't leave the place now. I don't. Hi, Dave Phillips.
Hi, Dave. Hi, mate.
Where's Warren? Tim Taylor. Craig Fenny. Hi, Craig.
Hi, Craig.
Gianani as well. Yeah. It's an interesting one, isn't it? Pete, you've basically talked about it's like the custom toolbox. I believe you've got a new book out about the Kanjira.
Yeah, I've got a beginner's guide to the Kanjira. Actually, I've got that written entirely in this lockdown period, actually, because it was quite a big. It's got like more than 1,300 audio examples. So I've been kind of putting it off for a couple of years, but I mean the idea is because a lot of the time when people see Indian rhythm and Indian instruments, the actual the rhythmic material and the whole thing is so daunting. So, it's such a complicated rhythmic world that sometimes people think, actually, I'm not going to go into it. I'll do something different. So for me, I see the potential of, particularly instruments such as the Kanjira that could be like the new Pandero or Cajon or whatever. So I wanted to do a book that wasn't specifically based on the traditional way that you would learn the instrument. So it's presented more in a Western drum set style. So the first 3/4 of the book, there are no syllables at all. It's all just notation, and starting from the absolute basic, baby steps of the instrument. So hopefully, I don't think there's anything like that been done before with the Kanjira in that presenting the instrument in that way. So hopefully, for me, it's just can I open up that to some other people? Can I show them, show them into the door and say, look, this drum's amazing. And then, when you've done that, you listen to the rhythms as well and stuff like that. It's incredible rhythmic world.
Jim Tanner says, hi guys, love the shaker ideas. Hi, Victoria Lee. Is that on Hudson Music?
Hudson Music, yeah. So it's now available on their digital, on their app. And the thing about it is, one of the reasons that I love working with Hudson is that all of those audio examples are you just click on them. So you're reading the book in the app or on their e-reader or whatever, and you just click on the music. And I've put fast and slow of each example. So you can imagine how long it took me to record that lot, and then edit it, make sure they're all the same level, and that's pretty full on job. Besides writing the book, of course, which also took a while.
As well, fantastic guys out there watching. Obviously, remember, if you're watching the first time, please log on to obviously palacedrumclinic.com. You'll see lots of videos. Actually, see one of when Pete actually came to Palace Drum Clinic a couple of years ago, and obviously the other guys as well, Rob and Mr. Cater. If you've got anything about percussion questions about your experiences, or like little anecdotes, or even little stories, please put them in the comments as well, because we like to hear about you as well. We could talk for hours, and sometimes we actually do. So nice to hear from you. Hi, Paul Brown's watching. Clive Johnson, nice to see you guys. So please put them in the comments. Anything really. It's I've got many stories to tell about different stuff, playing with different people, different orchestras, different all groups and everything else. And you just sometimes you hang in your head, in your heart, kind of thing, going, oh, you're destroying this, because obviously there's nothing there. But that's a different subject to talk about. So destroying my heart. But no, it's all good. I'd just like to basically open up to, so anyone can basically answer this question. Is that during this, obviously, we know Pete's obviously just got his new books, been doing down lockdown. But have you had any kind of, during this period, of actually picking up a completely different instrument, not percussion or anything else, just to literally find out mechanics, or basically things that you played with, you understand it? Have you had any inkling to basically go, do you know what, I think I'd like to understand that a little bit better? Well, anybody can jump.
Wish I had, but I haven't had any time at all. I haven't even had time for practice at the moment, because of all these collaborations that I'm doing online. All this, every video I'm doing all the editing and all that stuff. So actually, that's why I'm finishing the series next week, because I want to get some space. So in a word, no.
No. Yeah, me too. No, definitely.
No. There's no from all of us. Oh well.
Yeah, I've been back to the piano a little
I'm going to send everybody a flute. How about that?
Just heard it there. Please sign up down below if you want a flute from Pete Lockett. That'd be amazing.
No, a flute of wine.
A flute of wine.
That's more like it.
That's better. The thing is, it's an interesting question, because I've got asked this quite a few times during clinics. Do you know any other percussionists who play sort of different instruments apart from the drummy side of it? Obviously it does enhance what your understanding with playing with other people does as well. But I just want, just in lockdown, because obviously we had so much time. With it was just an interesting one from my personal view.
But have you picked up something that you hadn't picked up before?
COVID-19.
apart from the Hoover.
Yeah, apart from the Hoover. Actually, I know. I've got the other Hoovers aren't available, but I've got this the Dyson's animal stick. Right. I love doing that. It's brilliant.
Oh, there you go.
As well. Maybe that I could make that into an instrument, because it's a trigger. But anyway, now there is a couple of things that I thought, do you know what? I actually will sit down and actually I'll just I'd like to do that. And one of them actually was
Kanjira. There's your answer right there.
Do you know what? That is not a bad thing, because I need to get back, because I haven't had any situation where I've actually done any hand percussion for a couple of years now. So that might get back me into it, which would be amazing. So just do it all the time with the different or the nasheed singers and all kind of stuff. The one I actually wanted to do was sit down with my son, because he got bought a ukulele And I've always fancied basically just sitting there and just strumming out a couple of little tunes and singing along, with the guys and all that. But
Whilst
I
clicking the
can't get him to
window.
read and do his writing, let alone play the ukulele at the moment. But he plays his squeeze box, so there we are. So
Brilliant.
maybe that. Hi Georgie, hi Ben Menard. Now, guys out there, we had a fantastic week last week of discussing about what the Palace Drum Clinic is going forward. Are we going to bring it back? When, timescales, and all that kind of stuff. At the moment, we don't know. That's all I'm going to say. We have got plans for September, but because a lot of you actually showed a lot of interest, what I'm doing next Thursday, which is Thursday the 18th of June, that's Thursday the 18th of June, and that will be at 7:45. We are going to actually do it's like an online masterclass, like a Palace Drum Clinic last one. I'm going to do the first couple. They're going to be fortnightly, and then we're going to ask the guys here to basically participate, get some other guys coming in, how free was it. But one of them was actually very interesting subject, was on the traditional grip. So on the 18th of July, Thursday 18th of July, starting at 7:45, so 7:45, about like an hour and a half. I'm going to be doing like a workshop on Zoom from about traditional grip and technique. It's an introduction to. Obviously, we haven't got time to sit down and do everything, but it will hopefully give you the basics to have a bit more understanding about it. So if you're interested in that, I've actually started an event. I've got some people's details here who have actually shown interest in that, but please go to that event, which is on the Facebook page of the Palace Drum Clinic, and if you basically click going, what I will then do, I will send you all the information regarding where to log on, how to pay and all that kind of stuff. It will cost you £15, so £15 for an hour and a half is, I think, is an absolute bargain. So if you want to do that, please do. So that's the 18th of June, so it's next Thursday at 7:45. Please go to that event. Click on going, and then I'll be in touch with you guys. And then I'll be I say the next one after that will be the 3rd of July. Flams are your friends. That's the next one. So there's lots of stuff like that. So fantastic. Oh, we've got another couple of questions.
You'll have to do one. You'll have to do one on Flemish.
Flemish. There we go. I better go from there. Mike Tubb said, I picked up jet wash today. 2 hours later, I hadn't washed anything. I wished I hadn't. There we are. I wished I hadn't. Did it go, pumping the rivers out? It'd be amazing. Got another one, Josh. Occasionally do studio engineering and heard that Pete has done a new plug-in for, can't read that. So the Contact? By any chance? Can you explain more about it and what it's called, please?
Yeah, we haven't got a name for it yet, actually, but it's not going to be. It's for Contact, which is a plugin that you would put in Ableton or Logic or whatever. But it's very much a company called Rattle and Roar, which are a really cool British-based company making some really great innovative sort of plugins. And it's what it is. It's I don't want to do one that's just another sort of standard percussion plug-in that you'd get, some congas and bongos and tabla or whatever, I wanted to do it so that really percussion is the sound source for sound design. So kind of that's what we've done with it. And so there's obviously every sort of percussion you can imagine in the plugin as sound sources, and you could do some kind of cliche kind of patterns with it if you want, but the key to it is that there's like a absolutely rammed with effects and things that you can do with the sound. So I'm really excited about that whole direction of seeing what you've got and what different things you can make out of it is a really super exciting thing for me as a percussionist, because as percussionists, that's what we're doing all the time. We people go into the garden centre and they see pots and things dangling, and I see instruments all the time, and all my percussionists friends go, oh yeah, in the garden centre we're playing these pots and we're playing all this stuff, so yeah, seeing what you got and you can make different stuff out of it. It's just sound at the end of the day. What amazes me is that if you go back to the original drum set, the contraption and all those things in it, wood blocks and little funny things, and yet now the modern day drum set is completely standardized. As you see very few players with different sounds in there, and it's a mystery to me. I honestly don't understand why a drum set player wouldn't have loads of, and it's not a criticism, it's just a curiosity to me as to why people don't think, and especially with going back to the shakers thing and different tonal things like iato and tree lock, like Rob mentioned, all that stuff, that tonal stuff that you can bring in.
Definitely. Hi Claudine. Gaynor, as you said, sounds great. Yeah, so basically fantastic. So the one to the Zoom lessons. There's limited space, unfortunately, limited to 20. So please sign in quickly if you can. The first 20 will basically be there. So get to that event, click on going, and I'll be in touch with you as and when. Josh just replies that sounds incredible. Is it going to be samples to create your own rhythms and loops for pre-created rhythms?
Yeah, no, you can't. It's not loop based, so it's all sound based. But yeah, there'll be a sequencer in it that you can arpeggiators and stuff like that. So you'll be able to do. And obviously we're going to load it with loads of patches of certain stuff that were pre-prepared as well. So I mean, it's just literally it's going to be rammed with features. It's going to be astounding, actually. I mean, not blowing my own trumpet. It's just going to be a brilliant thing, as simple as that.
When's that? Did you say when that's available?
Well, probably. It's done, but we're at the artwork stage now. So within a month or two, I think. Hopefully, I'm not sure exactly the time frame.
So basically, at the end of summer was probably.
It's unknown, but yeah. I mean, when I did my app, that took 2 years development to get that my Drum Jam app, which is on Apple devices. That took a couple of years to develop, and then so the lead-in for this is a lot quicker. We've developed it, really quite. An app is ridiculously complex to develop.
Just replied. Yeah, amazing. Definitely going to look into that when it's available. Yeah. Hi, Richard Powell's watching as well. Fantastic. Talking about that, so there's different kind of sounds. Mr. Cater, have you actually thought about doing any of your gigs kind of thing on an alternative drum kit?
No, not really. How do you mean an alternative?
Well, basically not going out, basically what you've seen basically in front of you, but actually going out with, I don't know, maybe everything in it's like a metal dustbin. You turn a dustbin, it's like, there's your bass drum. And you get sort of baked bean, it's like baked bean tin. Do you know what I mean? So it's
no, not really. I did do for a while. I did experiment with the remote bass drum concept, which is where I had 2 bass drums where I'd take one to the gig and I'd leave the other one at home. That was quite interesting. But no, I am still a student of this very limited color palette, and I haven't got close to what's possible on here. I can't allow myself the luxury of adding anything else because I don't feel I'm really on top of this very small amount of sound sources that I have here, and that's my thing.
Fair enough. Hi, Charlie Ashby's watching. How you doing? Rob, same question.
Oh, I love it. I mean, adding shakers to things, messing around with tambourine parts, the Darabuka for the Lorena tour. I've I need some lessons on it to be sort of more finesse to my playing, shall we say? But I'm more than happy to add these things to the drum kit. I really enjoy that, and when I do workshops and stuff, I'll often start with just a stick in my left hand and a shaker in my right hand, and not really get to any sort of the pyrotechnics that some people want to see. I don't get to much later. I just play groove stuff. I mean, you've seen me do that, Matt, and I'm sort of messing about with tambourine, and I get a tambourine, and that whole side, I'm kind of like a frustrated percussionist, there's a part of me that really wants to venture completely into that world, but I find that I haven't, maybe it's an excuse, but I haven't got the time to go completely down that rabbit hole, even though I'd love to, because I keep, I need to work on the session work and the drumming and the teaching.
There's a thing actually that I think is for me, it's a really useful thing. The concept of Kaizen from Japan, like the philosophy of Kaizen, which is to take small bits of everything, because it's something that I talk about a lot in clinics, in the sense that people will ask, you know, you go to a clinic, you watch a great drum set player or great, you know, whatever, and someone in the audience will say, you know, how much do you practice? And they'll say, oh, 8 hours a day for like 15 years and that, which, okay, they probably have done, but, you know, it can be off-putting. You know, people don't always have that amount of time, and they don't have that commitment always, to be perfectly honest.
Yeah.
But does that devalue what they do? No, of course it doesn't. The thing about Kaizen is that it says all of the small parts that you take, you put them together and you value them. So if you're working or you're looking after the kids or you're doing whatever, and you can fit in 30 minutes in the morning, don't devalue it by saying, oh, well, you know, it's not 8 hours, so it's worthless. You have to value all those little bits, and then you can get the most out of them. You get the most out of you know, of that time. And it's the same, I think, you know, in a way for you with the percussion, just bring it in slowly and different, like you're doing, like Stanton Moore with his tambourine. Have you seen the thing he does with the tambourine? And obviously he's got that low pitched tambourine on his left, which is amazing, but he's got some great New Orleans stuff with that little tambourine, and he does something with it, holding it over the snare drum with a stick in between. And
that's right. Yeah,
really cool, like super cool stuff.
And it makes you feel good as well, because when I put those little bits into the workshops and stuff, I get more buzz from doing that than I do the stuff that drummers are waiting to see. You know, so personally for me, digging a bit deeper into that really is kind of a bit of a musical turn on for me. And I come home thinking, I want to do a bit more of that. You know, I want to take that into another realm. And
that goes back to what we were saying earlier about, like, you know, developing your own sound and character and personality and and all
absolutely.
that.
Absolutely.
That's the holy grail right there.
Yeah. Exactly.
Doesn't matter what anyone thinks. If you're true to yourself and you got your vision and you believe it.
Yeah. Well, too right. Hi, Jane Pashby, Andrew Thomas. Mike Topham said, I once played the intro to Tom Hark on an actual penny whistle, sadly not well enough for it to become a regular feature at his gigs. What depends how you're playing it. I can remember I had a little group with a friend and colleague of Pete's, actually, Simon Limerick. We had this little group, and it was it's like
amazing percussionist, no less.
Yeah, it was a lot of original ideas. A lot of them come from Simon. I had some of my own kind of stuff, but one of our signature, we were called Rhythmatic, and the actual piece was called Rhythmatic, and it was for 3 drum kits, but they weren't drum kits at all. As I say, you know, when I said to Pete, when you turned up dustbin, metal dustbin, that was a bass drum. I had a coffee can, strapped to as much as I possibly can to a snare drum stand, and basically that was my snare. And then I had a little child's, those little little cymbals you get, which basically you just do that with them, and that was just absolutely great. Do you know what I mean? So I had all these different sounds, but obviously playing it's almost like a drum and bass kind of thing, and you could take the heads. Basically, you can go anywhere with it. We basically just the whole piece of music basically just on one piece of paper, and you can basically write it's A B A kind of thing, and then obviously head and off you go kind of thing. Didn't matter what you did, as long as you basically write here's the cue, and we basically all play a unison bit, then we go back to do something. It worked. Everyone loved it. It's really, really good. But it was
about we need to prioritize sound in a way over anything else to a degree. Not obviously you can't take that as a universal, but I mean I remember, because as a percussionist, I'd learned specific things and I'd learned this and that, and I remember doing a session with Phil Manzanera from Roxy Music, and I went in and we did all the normal kind of stuff that percussionists would do on a session, as I expect, and we got to this last track, and certain things they weren't working, and he said, we need to kind of do something different with this. So we ended up going around, getting the dustbin from outside. He pulled the front off of the AC unit that was up on the wall. We had the heater and all sorts of stuff. And I thought, my initial thought was, blinkered sort of small-minded thought at the time was, this is stupid. This is not a percussion instrument. But when you heard the track, it's amazing, totally amazing. I think that's the thing, is you got to be open to sound. It's not really necessarily always about, unless you're doing something that's specifically this or that, as a percussionist, it's about sound.
Right. I think we can get a little bit precious about about the instrument and the sounds, like, you know, Pete's saying. And sometimes it takes, you know, that producer or someone to say, look, let's take this, let's take that. Because I had the same thing with Andy Partridge from XTC. He wanted me to do something. He was putting all this stuff, he was rearranging the kit and putting all these different things and saying, play that wine bottle, this is going to be great. You know, and he could see that, I could see that in his genius, he had this pattern forming. So I thought, right, I've got to now take what I do on the drums to just a different place. Okay, let's see what this sounds like. And it was absolutely fantastic. And that was the first time one of the first times I let myself go to that and thought, there's more to this than just my drums or these shakers. It's here, it's in my hands and what I'm playing and what I'm holding at the time. That's where it's going to happen. And if someone's got a vision of sound, let me be guided to that. And that was, again, another freedom that, you know, we can sometimes be too, you know, sort of blinkered. Like the blinkered is quite a good terminology for that. So I had a similar experience. It was wonderful. Just so much freedom. Yeah. It's just wonderful.
One of our party pieces in the group with Simon is that Simon came up with this idea. It's like, what happens, like you're just out and someone says, oh, can you do something for us? You know, it's like, you know, in a workshop or gig environment kind of thing that, you know, we haven't got the gear for anything. So we actually wrote it for drinks cans. Just discovering sort of the sound you can create, so like shaking them, and we actually got asked this. So we obviously got some money out in the vending machine, got 4 drinks cans in, and I can tell you, I don't like waste, so I actually drunk mine. But then actually performing the piece, it was a bit windy. The bubbles were kept coming up, but it was actually
outdoors.
Yeah,
hopefully.
Yeah, but it was but it's incredible. It's like, you know, the kind of, obviously using sort of different rhythms on it, but actually the actual sound as well. You know, it's like scraping the bottle and actually pulsating, and it was also worked out because at the end,
Is that the can you after you drunk the fizzy drink.
And it's one of those things where obviously we ended up sort of putting the ring off, putting it in, and obviously they become shakers and you can open and close your hand, different sounds. But obviously we can only do it once with those specific cans because obviously they were absolutely destroyed at the end of it. But it went down an absolute storm because, like, I didn't know you could play drinks cans, and it's exactly what you say, Pete. It's not that we're playing drinks cans; it's the sound we're creating from whatever we have at that particular point, isn't it? So hi, John Quirk's watching. So it's amazing what, you know, because I always feels like it's not necessarily the instruments, it's about the sound. You know, what are you creating sound wise? You know, you've got this sound in your head, so basically what can you basically find to make that sound? And I've been down to like DIY places and try and recreate that sound that I've got in my head. And they're great places because they're a lot cheaper than sometimes the actual products themselves. And it's great, get your hands working, just don't chop your fingers off. Right, guys, I'm aware that we're coming to like a close because I know we started late, so we'll finish just a tiny little bit late. We just started earlier, but yes, hi Louise, fantastic for watching, thank you. One thing I'd like to ask our special guest is that if you basically had to choose, basically, so one kind of avenue you basically could only take from now on, what would that avenue be? Would that basically be the whole kind of producing?
I've got to be honest. I'm not going to be a great answerer to this question because I don't really, I don't really go for the hypothetical, answering hypothetical questions really, because the choice would never come. So for me, I'm just interested in so many different things that I love the fact that that's all my percussive family. Like sometimes people will say, what's your favorite instrument? And I was like, actually, I don't have one. It's all my percussive family. In terms of study and detail of technique, then you'd have to look at the Indian system, the North Indian and the South Indian system I've just got a fresh glass of wine. Thanks, Pam.
Hey.
In terms of detail and technical study, it's a absolute, it's 1,000 lifetimes work to it, and that's one of the great joys of discovering it, because there's two attitudes you can have. You can discover something like that, and you can, feeling omnipotent, you can think, oh, that's terrible because I'll never be able to, be the best or learn it all. For me, I completely think of it the other way. I think that, wow, I've got this thing here that, you know, I can only scratch the surface of. I only know the basics. I know the baby steps of Indian rhythm, and it's something that will last me a lifetime. I can always be pursuing further and further and more and more things, discovering more and more things with it. You know, so it's a good. So yeah, I mean, in terms of the hypothetical question, I wouldn't answer it. But in terms of saying, if I've reframed the question and said, you know, what was the most involved thing that you've studied, then I would answer North and South Indian rhythm music.
Thank you. Got a question from Tom Lane. Mr. Cater, does Mr. Cater play cowbells?
If that's what the music calls for, then yes, I do. I've always got a couple of them with me.
More cowbell.
And if you don't mind me asking, what size is your cowbell?
Matron,
It's about that big.
It depends on the weather. Yeah,
I thought it was.
I've got one that's very shiny and another one that's black.
You know, that I got a great story. I was on tour in Switzerland, and it was the morning, you know, and we were staying in someone's house, and the guy suddenly was banging on my door, and he was saying "migrating crows." And I'm like, "What are you talking about?" He said, "Migrate." It's all he said. He didn't really speak English. "Migrating crows." I'm like, you know, it's early in the morning. So okay, so I've got up. We've gone out to the end. It was right in the countryside, you know, the place. And lo and behold, it was that one day of the year where all the cows come down from up on the hill, down to the pasture or fields or whatever, wherever you put cows. I don't know. And it was just unbelievable because it was such a huge line of cows. I mean, I've got hundreds and hundreds of them. Some of them with massive, giant cowbells. Some of them with small. You had all these pitches and tones. Brilliant. And it's just incredible. And then it became like Doppler and like almost 3D, because once you're in the middle of it and half of them are past you and half of them were coming. But in the beginning, it was just this distant sound. And the guy saying to me, "migrating crows." And of course, he meant cows. He just couldn't pronounce it. You know, just amazing. I'll never forget that.
Yeah.
And then I got trampled to death.
Don't trust me twice. She'll make a whole piece out of it. Yeah.
Just on the cowbell, I've seen Mr. Cater actually play cowbell and slightly move to the beat as well. During our very successful Palace Drum Camp, I did basically, like, you know, after a night of curry and beer, 10 o'clock the next morning, I basically bombarded everyone with the samba workshop, and
I didn't lose the beat.
Yeah, it's great. We've got this, like, you know, actually everyone's enjoying it, so it's absolutely brilliant. So yeah, so Pete does play cowbells. So there we are. Okay, you may know this one because I don't. Is there a song from the '60s famous for the bass drum being a cardboard box?
Are you asking me?
Anybody?
Oh, no chance.
I thought Mr. Cater might know that. He's got to look at
what genre?
It's got to be.
I mean, no, Buddy Holly. There's a few Buddy Holly songs where they play a cardboard box.
Rhythm and box.
Part, but I don't know for the bass drum. I mean, he was playing it with sticks, but I can't think which song it was. But
wasn't it a Woody Allen song?
Yay!
Could well have been. If Google it, I think the answer to that one is at the moment. Google it. Is size important? Speaking of cowbells, obviously, I don't know if there's an important question there, or basically, but size of cowbells. I suppose I remember this when I first started freelancing. There was this guy. An older guy. It was a pop song, something by Joe Meek, apparently, the bass drum. So there we are. Yeah. He liked to have the biggest of everything because he thought the biggest was the best. And his whip, so basically 2 pieces of wood like that, was about this long. And you had to play about 4 bars before it's like kind of thing. So size is not important. You'll be pleased to know, guys. Size is
that context, isn't it? You know, if you've got if you've got integrating a cowbell into a drum set is a different thing than having, you know, cowbells on the timbales, for example, or having the hand cowbell with for the bongo player and stuff like that. So really, actually, to answer the question, you'd need context added.
Yeah.
You know,
because
playing for a start, and what instrument.
Absolutely. And what song it's on. You
Yeah.
know, some cowbells are too low, they can be too high.
Yeah, if it's on the song with the cardboard box as a bass drum, you're going to have huge problems with the big cowbell.
There we are. Hi, Howard. Howard Bradley. How you doing? Yeah, well, thank you ever so much for tonight. As I say, remember, we've got a couple of things going on. We've got the Thursday. Please go to the 18th of June. It's on the Facebook page, on the Palace Drum Clinic Facebook page. It's an event, so please click on it. You can't miss it. It basically got a picture of me, and actually you see me do like holding my stick in a traditional way. And that's obviously on traditional grip. This is the 18th of June. Obviously, I will be in touch with people who have shown interest. Oh, we've got it. Cardboard box drum kit instructions on YouTube. So if you go in the comments, click on that, it's there. Thanks, Martin Ollie. So we've got that coming up, which is next Thursday, the 18th of June. We're back next week at our normal time at 8:30. Technical hitches hopefully won't happen then, but if they do, please bear with us. We're doing the best we can. We're only drummers, but we'll be doing well. I've learned a new skill. This, all technology. I know where the off switch is now, which is fantastic. So we've got those. So please put your interest in for the online masterclass, and also we'll be back next week at 8:30. But it's been an absolute privilege again, Thurs. First of all, can I just thank welcome back and thank Mr. Cater, Mr. Pete Cater. Thank you very much for all your knowledge as well, Mr. Rob Bryan, and also our very special guest this evening, Mr. Pete Lockett. Thank you ever so much for joining us.
Fantastic, Pete.
Yeah,
Great to have you in the house.
Everyone's saying thank you. It's most entertaining evening as ever. Going on, thank you. Thank you guys for watching. As I say, if you're watching new to us, please like the Facebook page. Go to PDChatshow and you'll see all these guys on the screen when they actually came to do the clinics and stuff like that. So thank you ever so much once again, guys.
And don't forget, every Wednesday.
Every Wednesday, any time, particular time, Pete, or just every Wednesday?
Midday-ish is going to work.
It'll be better. So 8 again. No, it's 8:30 next week, Martin. So 8:30 back. Thank you, says Matthew Demonis. Have a great week. Thank you, guys. Great even see you 8:30 next week. Yes. So thank you very so much, guys. 8:30 next week. Please stay safe and basically take care of everyone. Thanks so much, guys. You stay clever now. So all the best.